The first portion of each Q&A session will be a recording of Jacque Fresco talking on specific subjects that he feels people need to know and understand. During this portion, questions relating to the subjects being talked about can be sent by text chat to myself, Andrew, or Sven Gillison through the text chat. If you double click our names, you can send us a message through there. After screening relevant questions to the subject being talked about, Jacque will answer those questions at the end of the talk. Today's presentation will be on conflict resolution. It's a 30-minute presentation, and Jacque will take the questions and answers afterwards. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. We're going to try something a little different today. We actually have a recording. We're both here, but we have a recording of many different topics that Jacque has done. So we're going to pick one, which is conflict resolution, as Andrew mentioned. And it's about 30 minutes, and then we can do questions regarding it. So we can just start. Thanks, everyone.
Conflict resolution, or how to avoid conflict with other people, which is a typical problem of everybody. The reason for conflict is because people come from different places, different environments, and they bring with them attitudes which they picked up there. So merely commanding another person, saying to another person, you ought not to think the way you think, does not alter the behavior. So if you really want to get along with people, only when they say to you, what's the best way to put the shovel into the ground? Use your foot. It's easier. But if they don't ask you, let it go. The best way to avoid conflict is not to superimpose your values, even though they're better than the other person's values. Like Roxanne may like cats. I don't like cats in the house because I feel that they're dirty and all that. But anyway, the question is, how much do I like Roxanne? You know what I mean? If she doesn't mean that much to me, I say the cats go or I'll go. All right. When you deal with people, whatever their views are, unless they say to you, what do you think of my views? Then you can give your opinion. Like sometimes Joel may feel that his boss is not correct in his values. If you were to confront him with saner values, he would not understand it. He would resent it too because it's a put down. You know what I mean? So when you meet people, they tell you what their values are by the way they speak, the way they talk about different things. Unless they say to you, what do you think of my values? Then you open up. Or what do you think of the way I use a paintbrush? If they say to you, that's no way to use a paintbrush, that doesn't tell you how. You wipe it on the can or whatever it is, you can tell them. Very few people, unless they're going to school to study aviation mechanics, they go there to learn what this guy has to say. But if one of the students tell them something, they would feel put down. The student says, well, you don't understand the mechanics of a piston engine. That's a put down because the student is telling him that. If the instructor told him that, he went there to study plumbing or art or music. So you listen to an instructor. You're there to learn what they have to tell you. But when you meet ordinary people, if Roxanne, say, is working at something, and it's very important to her, and it's a phone call, which detracts her away from that, and she may go back and not continue along the lines. But if you say, hey, you should continue along the lines you're working at, unless she said, Christ, I'm terribly disorganized, what do you suggest I do? Then you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And she says, I don't like 4 and 5. But don't argue with her. If she says, I'm not sure of 4 and 5, then you can instruct her. The language tells you whether a person wants to hear more or know more. Anything you say is a put down to normal people. If it improves, if it's overseeing the other person's shortcomings. If another person has shortcomings, you work with those shortcomings, unless they say, how are you able to accomplish 4 films a day and I can only do 1? Then you can say, because you clean out, you bake the oven, and then you water the lawn, then you go back to your job. You have to stay with each system. Do you understand what I mean? If you get out to do a bridge, and in the meantime you water the roses and trim trees, a lot of things remain half done. I don't say you do that. But if you walk over to Larry and say, don't do it that way, do it this way, you're superimposing your values. They may be right, but you don't superimpose unless they ask you. So conflict occurs when a person doesn't seek your advice and you advise them. It doesn't always occur, but it will. So the way to get along with people is to let them be what they are, unless they say, I don't seem to get along with Polacks. What's my problem? Very few people do that. Very few people, in fact, I've never run into a person and said, what do you think of my value system? What do you think of the way I think? If they do that, and it's sincere, not an ego thing, where they appear to be polite. And if a person annoys you in some way, just say, I don't like to discuss races. I mean, if you want to be a racist, okay, I'm not interested in that. And he said, well, how come you don't see niggers as I see them? You can explain. But if he says, well, goddamn it, that's the way I feel, let him talk. Or discharge him if you hired him. You don't want to hear that. We hired a guy. There was a black man up on a pole working on an antenna. And the guy says, I need some rope. He says, tie it around your neck. If you fall, you'll hang yourself. You know, he thought that was appropriate for the black guy. We never hired him again because he was too low grade. To undo that, you have to undo his whole life. And either you hire a guy to put up an antenna or you work on his whole life. Your question is, how different is the person's background than yours? And does the person seek information? And if they did, don't feel like you're instructing them. If you come home and say, Larry, that's no way to use a paint remover. Best thing to do is say, I used to do it that way, then some other guy told me another way. They don't like personal criticism coming from you. So you can say, to identify with them, I used to hate niggers, Jews, and Polacks. Now I understand where they're coming from. I don't get involved in that kind of discussion because it can't go anywhere unless the person says, what do you think of the goddamn Mexicans coming in this country? I think the same way about the unloyal Americans that don't appreciate this country instead of attacking the Spanish people. Then I find Americans, some of them, to be very offensive and some to be okay. But you need not get on to the Spaniards because he has a fixed view of Spaniards. You say there are plenty of Americans that are subversive. He would agree with you as a rule. If he said, well, I don't know, never found an American, then get off. If he doesn't want to discuss it, if he feels satisfied with his point of view, the main thing you have to keep in mind is other people come from different places and they see the same thing you see, but their interpretation is different. Unless they call for answers. What do you think I want to do? If a person has a short memory, make notes. You tell them that once or twice, but not continuously, if they don't apply it. Do you understand? You give people instructions. If they apply it, give them further instructions. If they don't apply it, it means it's just a verbal pastime. What do you suggest I do? My wife likes cats and I like dogs. You don't have to come up with some story. Let her have her cats if she lets you have your dogs. But the dogs attack the cats. Then condition them not to attack. How do you do that? Get the handbook of conditioning, unless you want to go through that. You know, that's something you go through. Like, if the dog growls at the cat, he's wearing a collar, gives him an electric shock every time he growls. If a dog barks at night, he gets electric shock. You don't have to wear that collar all the time, but when he stops barking, you take it off, then he won't bark anymore. You put up an electric fence if you don't want your cows to go in the neighbor's yard. So the cow gets up against the fence and he gets a shock. Maybe it takes 2 or 3 shocks, then you can turn off the electricity and stay away from the fence. You don't have to do it every night. So in working with conflict, you do it once or twice. You say, it seems to me if you held the drill this way, and first it would work better. And that's what I found. But if a person doesn't ask you and they're busy drilling and they don't want your fucking advice, you tend to your computer. I'll tend to my drilling. You know, sometimes people don't want advice. They feel they're being put down. So stop giving one another advice. That produces antagonism, unless they ask for it. Now, is this an absolute formula? It's a better way of dealing with people, because you can turn them around by pointing out that the trouble with you is you don't listen to anybody. That doesn't cause them to now listen. They'll go on with their same pattern unless they say to you, am I inattentive? What, do I appear inattentive? Very few people talk like that. That's what sane means. Sane means when a person comes over to you and says, I'm not familiar with the jigsaw, how to use it, then you instruct them. If they come over every day and say, I don't know how to use a jigsaw, watch them and guide them through it. Does that make sense? Do you have any attitudes now about different people that think differently than you do? They think differently than you do, period. Making a comment that you're dim-witted or slow. The trouble with you is you have no imagination. That doesn't alter behavior. It only increases conflict. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, if a person's a very good painter of roses, and you like roses, then you associate with him for that reason. But it's just, if you ask me, all the Irish ought to be sent back to Ireland, say, well, I don't feel that way about the Irish, so I'd rather not discuss it. I think there are Swedes that behave badly and some Swedes that behave well. You can say that. He might understand that, but I appreciate your comments. Don't wipe him out. You're a racist. You know, don't wipe him out. Like judges, think of a guy murders a girl and then he cuts her up, then he's very evil. He's been conditioned to that, and the judge says, I have no idea what made him that way. Well, in Arabia today, the judges are very harsh. I think you know that. If a guy's a pickpocket, they chop his hand off. That doesn't stop him if he's got a right hand, unless they chop both hands off. But that doesn't stop him from being a pickpocket. It's a quick answer, but it's not a solution. And they think some Arabs are bad. If you think that a person's bad, or a person doesn't listen to you, while you're talking to them, it means they might be thinking of something else. Why doesn't he mind his own business, or whatever it is, unless they ask you? So in order to avoid conflict, don't generate it. You generate conflict whenever you offer something to somebody that they didn't ask for. Not always, sometimes. Do you understand that? If you want to get along with a person, let them be, meaning whatever they say. Unless they turn to you, say, what do you think of my Swedish background? then you can talk. So people go to school because they want to learn how to fly a kite or operate a car. So there they go to ask questions. They go there to learn. But if you come at people with your values without asking them, are you interested in the different values? Are you interested in a nation without war and poverty? Not particularly. Then stay out of it. I believe in a free enterprise system, and that's it, period. And I respect Jesus Christ and the Christian doctrine. I'm not asking you what you think of it. To each his own. You know, that's the guy that, or a gal that doesn't want to talk. Unless your boss tells you to paint the roof first, not the sides, then you either keep the job and paint the roof first. If he's your boss. You can't argue with your boss, say, look, if I paint the roof first, it's the wrong way. You don't argue with him. If he says, that's what I want you to do. I want you to paint the bathroom black. No. See, that's a terrible color. Not to him. If he wants it black, you paint it gray. Whatever a person hires you for, change all the tires, but they don't need changing. You got another 4,000 miles. He didn't ask you what you thought of the tires. You can think privately this man is not very bright, or he has a ridiculous set of values, but unless he asks you. Do you understand where conflict comes from? Superimposing your values. You can do it once or twice. If the person doesn't take to it, it means they're continuing their pattern. Unless they come back to you and say, I never can retain that. How can I retain it? Well, do you want me to remind you every time you seem to fuck up? They say, no, that would detract me. No, or yes, whatever it is. Ask for cooperation. Sharing ideas is what I'm talking about. You're not sharing ideas when you put a person down. When you tell them you're dumb for doing it that. You're dumb for marrying that guy. If that's her choice, she needs a whole different orientation for picking a guy. Yes, guys, I'm looking for the girl of my dreams. I'm looking for the guy of my dreams. The girl says, what is the guy of your dreams? What are the character? He has to know water skiing. He has to be a college professor. He has to know more than I know about a lot of things. He has to be dominating, whatever. I rarely get that when a person says, I'm looking for the right person. If you don't know what you're looking for, you can't look for the right person. The right person may weigh 400 pounds and not look the way you want him to look. You know what I'm talking about? And be a member of the Socialist Party. You can't dominate all areas of a person. And so if you have any conflict with anybody, it's that you don't understand what I'm talking about. Is there anybody here that doesn't understand what I'm talking about? I said, if you wish to eliminate conflict, or if you wish to continue conflict, instruct when instruction is called for. And instruct as many times as the person needs. Or you say, in the Army, when an officer walks into the barracks, they say attend, because everything he says they want everybody to hear. I want you all up at 7 in the morning, and then he leaves. But he doesn't come in if guys shine shoes and other guys making the bed. Everybody stops doing what they're doing. And the sergeant says attention, and everybody goes like that. And then the officer says, lights out at 10 o'clock, and he walks out. Otherwise, you put on KP duty, kitchen police, washing dishes, or cleaning the toilets. They either use punishment, rarely reward, unless you put up your life for your buddies. And there's the Medal of Honor. Or protect the president from being shot. The guy comes up with a gun, you stand in front of the president, and the guy gets you in the arm. That's far beyond the duty that's called for. So you can give him a medal. If you give him a medal, it makes him feel good for what he did. If you show him in the newspapers, a real good American, Sam Schwartz, I said, sounds Jewish, doesn't make a difference. He will respect them for what he did. You can ask the person whether they're religious without, are you religious? That face, it's no good. You say, are you religious? Which denomination? I'm a Catholic. Do you fully accept everything in the Catholic doctrine? Yes, completely. And then the door is shut. It's relevant. He says, I'm not sure of one thing. That's an opening. That goes for any subject. Check for openings before you talk. Is that clear? Otherwise, you're going to have conflict all your life because you believe that what you say enters their head, you're the way you want it to. That's projection. When you tell something to somebody for their own good, if you keep drinking the way you will, you may become addicted. They say, that's great, I never thought of that. That's okay. But if you come out, a person is drinking, and he says, fuck you, then shut up. Just do what you can when they ask you. I hope you got this message. So if you have conflict, even with yourself, here's how you have self-conflict. You put something on yourself. I'm going to finish that today. But you didn't know your grandmother was coming to town. So you went to meet her at the station and shit, I didn't say that today. Just say, hope to finish that today. And if you don't, for whatever reason, you don't kill yourself. I should have done that day long. I should not have taken from that. I should make notes, grandma's coming. Do you understand? You deal with your own place. Because you have conflict yourself. Should I go to a movie with my sister who only comes to town once a year and I don't like the movies? Well, you have to say, what is it you want, sister? You want to make family equally go to the movie with her. A little pain for 1 hour, but if you want equilibrium in the family, you make a decision to your desires. If your mother says, before I die, it will help me if you just attend church once with me. That's 1 hour. Her sermon is rarely more than an hour and a half. So you say, well, to keep her at peace, I'll do that. I don't say don't yield to other people. Yield as therapy. Do you know what that means? If you have to do, yes, sir. I tried something at right field. The guy won't let me enter. You drive your car in to get there. You have to show your credentials. So he looks at it, he says, you can pass. So I said, I can design those credentials. When you open it, switch, blinding acid in your eyes. You know what I mean? I said, your job can be easily done away with. He says, that's interesting, isn't it? That's all right. But he's not asking you. He's an inspector at the gate. And if you talk to him, he'll talk to his superiors about you being a danger. Even though you talk to him for his own good. Do you understand? Don't assume anything. You talk to people, and whatever happens is the result, not what you think should happen. After all I did is result good. I saved the kid from drowning, and he beat the shit out of me when I pulled him out of the water, because I didn't know he wanted to commit suicide. Do you understand? Do you want to drown? Yes. Then let him drown. But if you save a person from that, they may kill you. That's why some people, when they rob a store, they shoot the owner and the clerk because they don't want to be identified. They want to make sure that if they're caught, the guy says, yeah, he's the guy that killed the boss. So they shoot people that could put them down. That means they don't know any other way of dealing with the problem. But if you come at with another way, before the event, it's okay. After the event, it's worthless. So self-conflict is expectations of yourself that are beyond your reach. Condemning yourself means you don't know enough about a subject you're condemning yourself for. So if you can carry that, it should save you a lot of trouble. What if a guy is downright mean? Then don't associate with him. That's your problem. Guy says, I'd like to kill the son of a bitch. Well, if you killed him, there are 10 million other sons of bitches in the world. So you'll always run into sons of bitches. You can't kill all the sons of bitches. Disassociate. Okay? No, I'm not saying the guy's a son of a bitch. I'm just saying that they are to you. If they aren't, disassociate yourself. If a guy says you should love your mother, do you know my mother? No, well, she killed 10 cats and 10 dogs and 2 sisters that I had. Too bad. Well, I can see your point there. But they can't see, don't associate with your mother if her values are different than yours. But if you spell out the values, she tried to choke me 4 times, and I was sent to the hospital. That's why I don't call her anymore. Because I said, yeah, I can understand that. How can he not understand that? But your own mother, you don't want to speak? Give him a reason, even though it's fictitious, so he can understand you. The trouble is, we project like mad into other people. So if you still have conflict, you didn't hear a word I said, or you didn't think about it. Does that make sense to you, what I said? So, and if you're tired, and somebody says, I want to talk to you about some conflict we have, just say, I'm very tired now, I have a headache, I'm not open as I would be tomorrow morning. Just state your condition. Say, I'm too tired, my horse just died, and my wife was in an automobile accident, I can't talk to you about it now. I'm less rational. You can do that. So if you're the measure of your own abilities, you're the one that knows you have a pounding headache and you can't talk about conflict resolution. Do you understand that? That's what when people say, know thyself. What the hell are they talking about? Very few people know themselves. Because themselves are a composite of all the people they've known. When you say know yourself, truly know yourself, you should be somewhat aware of the major influences in your life. Going to church, staying on the job, never quitting, always do everything the boss says, whether it's right or wrong. If you do that, you can hold a job a long time. But is that what you want? You want to be humiliated all the time, too? So that's up to you. Vacate when you have to. You know what I mean? If you can't solve a problem with a person, disengage. Unless the person says, what went wrong in our relationship? And you can say, nothing went wrong. We think differently about the same things. She wants to hang all the communists. He wants to hang all the socialists. You know what I mean? Are they wrong? No. They have a different set. Getting mad at them does not alter the set. Getting mad is a good thing in this society. So I know several people that bought a punching bag. You know what that is? When they come from work, they punch all day long. That's the boss. Whoever the hell, they put a picture of a guy on the punching bag. And that gives them some degree of relief. But maximum relief is knowing where they're coming from. Guy says, I've been a member for 20 years of the Rip Klan. That tells you where he's coming from. And if you can't understand that, you're going to have a lot of problems. Understanding other people means understanding where they're coming from. I said, no matter what you say, you'll always have conflict. That isn't true. Conflict is generated by one or the other person. And it's also projection based on what you assume ought to happen. The guy should appreciate what you told him. Not necessarily, they kill you. Not appreciate. If you explain to a soldier that the war in Vietnam was false, was just to make money, he may shoot you or want to choke you. That's his reaction to your statement. He said, I said it for his own good. That's reason. Has nothing to do with anything. A person may beat the shit out of you for nothing. A great big guy walked over to me once. I was seated in the bar only once. He says, "You're sitting in my seat." So I said, "That's right." I got up. But why take a chance of being pounded against the wall for some jackass? If a guy is tall, big, and strong, and he insults my mother, calls her a goddamn bitch and a whore, I just walk right on. I don't say, "What did you say about my mother?" He said she was a goddamn bitch and a... All right, he picks me up in the air and he throws me against a brick wall. Did that solve anything? Will you let that guy say that to you? Yes, I do let him say that to me. It's better than having you thrown against the wall. The guy is unsane to start with. But I got my rights. No, that's all bullshit. If a guy insults you in the presence of others, just let it go. There's nothing to be gained by saying, "Would you mind repeating that?" Because I said, "Fuck you and your family." You say, "Okay," and you walk away. The guy has a Casper milk toast. But you don't associate with those kind of people that have those values anyway. I took my mother to an insane asylum, and some guy called her out and said, "You goddamn old bitch." And then somebody else said something insulting. And I said to my mother, "What do you think?" She said, "Well, they're all sick here." I said, "Mother, when you leave here, a lot of people are sick too." See, she swallowed that. She let it go. She didn't get mad at the people. She's they're mentally ill. But when you go into the normal world, the guy says, "Obama's a communist, socialist, pig, whatever, nigger, whatever he is." You just let it go, because that's where the guy's at. I don't think he turned to you and said, "What do you think of my views of Obama?" Did he? That's sane. There are very few sane people that say, "What do you think of my proposition?" Or, "What do you think of the Venus Project?" Well, if he says it will never work, I can't do anything with that. He says your round building will not accommodate all those people, then I can deal with that. If he says your roads aren't wide enough and your electric generators will not supply lights, I can deal with that. But I can't deal with it, it'll never work. Well, I don't want to live in that. That's a personal value system. If he says, "What's the benefit of that?" Your rent is 1/2. You never have debt. There's no private banks. All the profits go to the whole community. If he can't see that, he owns a big establishment as a rule. You understand? Vested interest, it's called. If a man owns a large industrial plant, he's not interested in economics or an extra $50 a week. He makes $5,000 a week. Why should he listen to you? That's called vested interest.
We're just going to snap this. Okay. I hope that was heard.
Thanks, Roxanne. I think that went well. I heard it perfectly fine. Questions now in your tab at the bottom there, Roxanne.
You have to inform people of the influence of their culture upon the values. The role models, the people they admire, the motion pictures and the books they read. If you can't get to them through that method, come at them with another method. Try different systems. If they don't work, don't quit.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't read that question. My finger was on the wrong button when I read it. It said he was answering, how can we get more people to identify with this? If most people believe in free will, they instantly fight it, which causes conflict. So Jacque already answered that. That's what he was answering. Okay, when a person doesn't like point 4 or 5, as the example you gave in here, could you not ask why and be questioning he or she? And by questioning he or she would be able to find a solution to what he or she doesn't like in particular. Let's see, I'm reading the wrong something. What he or she doesn't like in particular work rather than, okay, agree with the person's unwillingness to proceed, as Jacque pointed out? Could you discuss things with people, ask why they don't like something?
Not always. If the black community went to a Klan meeting to share ideas, the black people will not be listened to. And the value system of members of the Ku Klux Klan is so different than that of the black community. There's no basis of communication. If a group of Jewish people went to a Nazi meeting to try to raise money for the B'nai B'rith, they would not succeed. Because the heavy indoctrination of various groups, unless some members of the group say, can you help me understand what it is where you feel I do not understand? Only if they inquire can you get to people. You cannot get to people that are satisfied with the way they've been brought up, unless they question that. To get them to question it, you have to get them to agree that a headhunter is brought up in the headhunting community. You have to show them where different people get their values from. If you can do that, you're halfway there.
This question, if I want to have sex with a woman and that woman doesn't want to have sex with me, how would we resolve that problem within the Venus Project Society?
You yourself have prejudices. You said, if I want to have sex with that woman, what if she doesn't want to have sex with that man, you? You see, you're dealing with different values. What turns a person on is not necessarily what turns you on.
But how would that be resolved in the Venus Project Society?
By staying away from people that don't want to be with you.
I think there'd be much more options too within the Venus Project Society.
That's true.
In terms of people getting along and what the range is, how many people you are able to meet and deal with. And you'd understand, you'd be able to identify what your needs are and what other people's values are more so. I'm just going to condense this question a bit. He's talking about conflicts between societies when one group in the society is gaining more resources and not enabling other people to have resources, and there's a lot of conflict due to that. He's giving an example of China. How can we stop people from hating each other?
You can't do that. You can only educate people or bring them up with a different value system. Or you have to change their values if you know how. If you don't know how to do that, nothing can be accomplished. If you attack them, it won't work.
And you'll continue to have that type of conflict between different groups, and especially if certain groups, especially if certain groups control resources, you're going to continue to have the problems that we have today amongst those that have the resources and those that don't. So, as Jacque always says, the only solution to that is a resource-based economy where all people share resources.
And values.
If we want to change a system, we must keep all movements together, not separate. Groups such as Anonymous, Occupy, etc. Can't the Venus Project be more open and support other groups?
It isn't the support of groups. It's the support of the proposals. If the proposals make sense, we will support them. In other words, protesting outside of the church, saying that that church is wrong, does not alter the conditions inside the church.
Okay, that's even interesting how even offering advice which is not requested can trigger a defense attitude. But I have experienced in general that many people seem to find it difficult to hang up their pride and ask for help when they need it. What is it about our culture that induces such personal boundaries, and can we avoid it developing in the first place?
Yes, we can avoid it developing. But remember that all societies try to condition their subjects to uphold existing social institutions. Otherwise, you can't control people. If you had a free society, you'd have 50 different political parties, not Democrats and Republicans. You cannot control people unless you condition them to uphold the social institutions that kept those in power. Those that are in power will only uphold the institutions that are useful to them, not to the masses of people. We do not think that way in this society.
To avoid conflicts, please expand on the issues of trust in humans versus machine control. Okay.
When you say trust in humans, I think you're talking about performance. If their performance is similar to their value system, you know you have predictability. What humans really seek is not trust. It's predictability of another person. If you know that a person will show up at a given time and pretty much carry out what they talk about, which is far from politics. Politics is not that way. Politicians say things people like to hear to try to get elected. They do not say things that contradicts the dominant values of the society. So you're dealing with many different aspects of human behavior. The question is, what is it that you want? You want predictability with the person you're working with. Then you have to earn that through time, not hope that they'll behave that way.
Hypothetically, if a person running towards a bridge with no end and don't realize it, how to turn him around without how do you turn him around without superimposing your values?
I really honestly do not understand the question.
I think they're asking if you see someone who is headed towards disaster, how do you turn them around without superimposing your own values? I'm assuming.
Well, when I say if you're using the term your own values, you're talking about survival. You're talking about saving a person from his own insufficiencies. You can't do that if he's running toward a position to end his life. That's somewhat late. You have to do that before. You have to show them that there are many adverse conditions in the world. They have always existed. And as with the passing of time, we are slowly undergoing modification. Change is not always for the best, but change does occur. And if you can get the people when they're younger and give them a set of values that's relevant to the world they live in, then you can change people.
Is it true to say that miscommunication in idea sharing process occurs because often both sides aim to, quote, win the argument?
Sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. I can't answer that one way or the other. It depends on the people and how heavy the indoctrination was. Heavy indoctrination means like the Nazi point of view. Might be heavy. Or the banking institutions have a point of view which is apparently unalterable unless they come up to you and say, what do you think of the banking institutions? And they share values with you, and you talk, you engage in dialogue, not debate. Dialogue is where you share values. Debate is where you try to win.
I don't see a question here, but this person's making a statement. When I explain the Venus Project to people, some of them, basically with religious backgrounds, say that people will always be greedy no matter what. Even Abel and Cain could not live with each other when there was abundance. They say it's human nature, and I can't help convince them with nurture versus nature argument in no way.
That's an ego problem you're dealing with. If a person says, do you believe that people inherit their behavior or do they learn their behavior? You have to present evidence to show how and why. Why is it that a Nazi gets a lump in his throat when he sees a swastika, and an American feels anger when he sees it? The difference is the environment they come from. And if they're brought up in an environment with misinformation, they will behave that way.
Jacque, since you speak of talking to people in their own terms, quote, so that you can get to them, for them to understand, do you intend to use the same tactic in our current system? What I mean is this, okay, our current environment uses money to survive and thrive. Will the Venus Project ever consider using that same tactic of utilizing the environment, meaning money, to propel the Venus Project in other departments, such as other than the movie project? I guess they're saying, would you be using money for other types of projects other than the movie project within this system?
No, if the donations are made for the motion picture, that's what we use it for. If they make donations for publications, that's different.
I guess they're saying, do you use the same tactics in this society, like using money in order to get the values across? That's the only thing we can do.
No, in the future we use information.
I think he's talking about
we modify the behavior of people so their values coincide with a new direction.
I think he's talking about this system, but I'm not sure. We have to use money in this system to get our information out there, in terms of we have to use funding to get the internet, to get the website. We have to use funding to get the books out there. Yes, within this
system, yes.
We're trapped.
We are trapped just as you are within the system. We have to earn a living in order to pay rent and taxes. So we live in a monetary system. Therefore, we have to use the methods of the monetary system until it's no longer required.
But we're using it to get the word out of this direction. Would Jacque risk conflict in order to challenge individuals presenting inadequate information in a group environment?
No, I would not. I would use the same tactics that convinced me prior to my knowledge of certain things. There were times when I had beliefs similar to the average person. But what changed me is what I would provide for those people. Like if I'm talking to religious people, I would say the Bible says thou shalt not kill. How do you handle war? I would say the Bible says love thine enemy. If a man strikes you, turn the other cheek. How do you deal with that?
Would you present that information to a group, even though it might create conflict? Yes, you do.
Oh, yes, I always have.
Yes. So I guess you're not going by your word that way. You do present it. But I guess that lecture was more a personal conflict within individuals. Is that what you're talking about there? But you always present these ideas to a group, even though he knows it's going to create conflict. He's really just trying to reach those few that he can reach. Do you see the necessity of a resource-based economy to have a military if there are remaining monetary societies that may pose a threat during the transition?
We would not be a threat because we are friendly to all societies. We do not downgrade them. We merely say there are a certain phase of evolution, and they will probably outgrow it in time. Even if a nation doesn't want to join the global community, we think that in time their subjects will press them into joining the global community. We do not believe in forcing our views on other people.
Would you, I'm not sure what this question is asking, would you say the military can resort conflicts? Maybe they meant resolve, maybe.
No, the military can put down conflict, but it cannot resolve it. It can cause it to manifest itself at a later date when people are able to fight back. Doing a war with Germany, it doesn't mean that everybody now accepts a democracy. It means that the forces for democracy are stronger than the forces for retaining the Nazi point of view.
If that's not what this person meant, because I interpreted that as resolved, no. Has the way of resolving conflicts any connection to prisoner's dilemma? I don't know what that is.
I don't know what you mean by that, sir.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
How will people who indoctrinate dangerous values by force, for example, religious fanatics, be dealt with in a resource-based economy?
They can't be dealt with, but you can instruct them in the methods of science. If one scientist claims one metal is stronger than another metal, they put it to test, they try them out, and that which upholds the predictability of strength they use. I think that if people learn to put things to test, if somebody says a certain car gets so many miles to the gallon, say 100 miles to the gallon, you'd want to test it out before you bought it. The same with religion. All aspects and statements in the Bible can be checked. When they say that prayers are always answered, what do you think the Christians were praying for that was subject to lions, were thrown in an arena and were destroyed by the lions? I'm sure they prayed. But when you say prayers are always answered, you're not telling the truth. You can say some of my prayers have been answered, some have not. You're making a false claim when you say that prayers are always answered.
When is the optimal time to confront and resolve conflicts?
When they cool off and you can talk to them. While they're arguing, it's a very difficult time to resolve conflict. You can only resolve the conflict when they both calm down and you try to focus on the problem itself and show them how you arrive at decisions. You don't make decisions. You arrive at decisions by testing the methods that are being challenged.
Can conflict resolution be dealt with now, implemented by politicians, police, judges, courts? Can they resolve conflict?
No, you can't. If it's an established system, they don't ask you how to resolve problems. They've got a formula they work by, which doesn't work at all. They have prisons, police, and a formula. An established culture has already established the methods they're about to use. That's the way judges work. That's the way lawyers work. They work based upon established points of view. They do not work with emergent points of view.
In the past, communes and other people who have attempted to separate to form their own city-nation group had the military remove their city through physical force. If the Venus Project is ever built and this conflict comes from the local nearest government, what conflict resolution would you employ? Would you ignore it, avoid it? If so, by what means?
We would confront them and give them a reason for our new social design. And we would try to convince them of the validity of our decision system and invite them to participate and offer criticism. Of course, before they offer criticism, they would have to understand in the language that we use what we mean by socially acceptable ideas, that no human can abuse another human, that there are no prisons, no killing, and if they lived in accordance with those teachings, we can have communal activity that benefits all people.
Our views and our thoughts a shortcoming. In other words, the beliefs one lives by are fixed through filters. We all look at the same pictures but see it differently.
That's why I recommend the books, the best that money can't buy. We have books on the internet that will change many people's point of view if they read those books. We do not sell them. We name the books on the internet.
And we do sell the best that money can't buy. You're talking about the book list, other
Yes.
books on the book list, yeah.
It's also called recommended reading. The Demon-Haunted World by Carl Sagan. It's an interesting book. It has caused a lot of people to change their views. So I'm recommending books that I feel will help you understand different points of view without getting angry.
How would people in the Venus Project deal with hypothetical situations where we have researched and found that we need resources from an area which lives where a tribe of Indians live?
We would exchange products that the Indians need for products that we need, in other words, or services that the Indians need. We would try to work out a workable arrangement so that no one is hurt in the process.
Is it possible to be in the military and avoid conflict?
Well, it's on your rank. If you're a colonel, you can avoid conflict. But if you don't carry out what the Pentagon wants, you're removed from that position. The military is subservient to the commanders.
This person says this is off topic, but what can one do to make a living while cooperating to better live operation such as
operations?
Oh, okay, I just meant cooperating to better life operations such as resource-based
Look, you
okay.
have to work in the establishment in order to survive. But whenever you get any spare time, you try to educate people as to the direction of a resource-based economy and what it hopes to accomplish.
Is the filter we use in our thoughts avoidable? In other words, the beliefs one lives by are fixed through filters. We all look at the same pictures but see it differently. Okay, is it possible to think through? Oh, no. They're saying we think through filters, but we look at things differently because of it. He's using the word filter. Here's the question. Is it possible to think through all possibilities?
Yes, it is possible, but you have to be given the tools. If you don't have the tools to think out those problems, you cannot work with them. And if you have the tools, provide them to other people, or give them books to read, or have them do some work to be able to resolve that problem. Don't you try to carry it all for them. They have to work at it. They have to read. They have to become familiar with the questions they're asking. The questions may be valid or they may not apply. Only they, in reading another book with a different point of view, might alter their attitudes.
I'm going back to the same question. Is it possible to think through all possibilities? I don't think it's possible to think through all possibilities.
What you have to stay with is workable information with predictability. And that is, to my knowledge, science and technology, putting things to test. If they work, we use them. If they don't work, we modify them until they do work without hurting other people.
Very good. Thanks, Jacque. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I guess that's the last question for now. Let us know if this process works for you, if you get more out of it than just the questions. Thanks again, everyone.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity again. And try to read some of the books on our book list. Don't put it all on us. We want you to do some work too. So try to get hold of those books. Try to get books on general semantics. Try to get books on the history of civilization without the bias of a given country. Try to get books like the New American History, which doesn't have any fanfare in it or hype. In other words, you have to know what accurate information is, and you have to get books on what is information and what is propaganda. You have to learn how to identify the difference. Propaganda is when our president says, "God bless America." That's propaganda. Who is he to tell God who to bless? If God made everybody, you can't tell him to bless America. Or you can't say God's on our side. There's no commitment anywhere that indicates that. That's wishful thinking or conforming to some institution that you think people are involved in. You're lying to them.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jacque and Roxanne. Have you decided on what next week's talk will be about yet?
Oh, no. But we'll try and get it up there in advance in regards what the talk will be.
Okay, great, thank you. Right, I'll put the next week's theme up on the seminar room's description as soon as we get that. So that should be sometime this week. Thanks everyone for coming. Hope you all got your questions answered properly or adequately, and we'll see you next week.